how long ago was Thursday? 2 days ago. 48 hours ago, they had this meeting, and look what it was about. The U.S. Senate committee hearings on a 32-hour work week argued that people cannot attend church on Sundays if they work 70 hours, okay? Now, why are they so interested about Sunday? I'm going to tell you in a second. The United States Senate Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions heard a speech by a Connecticut Democrat senator. Did you see that? Did it say Republican? Notice it was a Democrat. Senator Chris Murphy on Thursday, March the 14th, 2024. The committee hearings addressed the need for a 32-hour work week that will give Americans more time for leisure activities such as family socials and, listen to this, Sunday church services. Speaking to Mr. Sean Fain, international president of the United Auto Workers Union, which is the labor union, Senator Murphy said that the reason for the drop in religious attendance in churches is because individuals are simply too exhausted after their week of work. In response, the head of the union reaffirmed that those who work too much don't have time for worship on what? Sunday. So if that is the case now, Brother Lopez and then Pastor, before I even show you the video, what would be the logical solution to solve this problem?
A Sunday law.
Hold on, put it in the microphone. Let everybody hear.
A Sunday law.
Say it in Espanol.
Una ley dominical.
That's it. What would be the solution to this?
Sunday observance, Sunday law.
Church, what would be this problem here? What would be the answer? What would be the solution to this problem? A Sunday law. So they say a picture's worth 1,000 words. Then a video must be worth 10,000. Now this is the Democrat, okay? Now listen to this. Listen what he says here. Listen what this Democrat guy says.
There's a pretty wild thing happening in America today. In 2000, 70% of Americans belong to a religious institution, but today that number is 50%. This has been a pretty precipitous decline in the ability or willingness of Americans to go to church or to a religious institution on a regular basis. And I think...
Now, hold on. This is about the 32-hour work week. This should have nothing to do. This should have nothing to do with Sunday worship. But you see that, do you see that we're leading up to, this is 2 minutes and 37 seconds. And Brother Keller, I need you to listen to this. Are you ready? Let me rewind it.
Wild thing happening in America today. In 2000, 70% of Americans belong to a religious institution, but today that number is 50%. This has been a pretty precipitous decline in the ability or willingness of Americans to go to church or to a religious institution on a regular basis. And I think that has lots of broad impacts in our society. But there are a lot of reasons for that. But one of them is that Americans just have less free time.
Okay, he said that Americans have less free time. So in order to give Americans less free time, let's make it a law so they can have more time, right?
When you have to work 70 hours to get the same standard of living for your family that 40 hours would have gotten you a few decades ago, you don't have time to go to Wednesday night Bible study. You might not have the ability to even attend church or services on a Sunday.
Does anybody here work 70 hours a week? Anybody work close to 70 hours? Be honest. All right, but how many used to work close to 70 hours? What you want to say, brother?
As I'm listening, I'm thinking about what he's saying. He said a lot of people have to work 70 hours to make as much as they used to just working 40 hours. Mm-hmm. Well, wouldn't the logical solution be just to give everybody a raise? I mean, wouldn't that be the logical solution?
Wow. That's very smart. But listen to this. Let me rewind it back.
But there are a lot of reasons for that. But one of them is that Americans just have less free time. When you have to work 70 hours to get the same standard of living for your family that 40 hours would have gotten you a few decades ago, you don't have time to go to Wednesday night Bible study. You might not have the ability to even attend church or services on a Sunday. You can talk about church if you want or if you don't want, but it is just true that some of the leisure time activities, some of the institutions that Americans found value and meaning in are less accessible when you have to work these long hours.
Okay, he said that some of these institutions are less accessible. What institution is he talking about? Sunday. And what did Ellen G. White say that we're at institutions? Let's go to Great Controversy. Great Controversy 443. She says, quote, she says, hold on, 445, excuse me. Great Controversy 445. She says, when the leading churches of where? Uniting upon such points of doctrine as are held by them in common, shall influence who? To enforce their decrees and sustain their what? The same word he was using. Then Protestant America will form the image of the Roman hierarchy, and the infliction upon civil penalties upon dissenters will inevitably result. This is at a U.S. Senate congressional meeting where he's saying that people don't have time to enjoy these institutions no more. Watch this.
True that some of the leisure time activities, some of the institutions that Americans found value and meaning in are less accessible when you have to work these long hours. I'd love to just hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest, it's one of the things we talked about with the 32-hour work week when we
Now, this is the guy that's the head of the labor unions, okay? Listen what he says.
put that in our contract talks was the fact that we wanted to create work-life balance. And as I say, when you're...
He wanted to create what kind of balance? All right, so let's look up work-life balance. All right, work-life balance. Look at this right here. Guess where they talk about work-life balance? In the National Catholic Register. Work-life what? You heard the man say it, right? Line upon line, precept upon precept. Advice for attaining peacefulness in daily routines within our souls. Work-life balance. So guess what I found? Guess what your pastor found? And guess what he said? A way to achieve work-life balance. Keeping Sunday holy. It's over, y'all. Look at that. Look at that. Yes, keeping holy the Sabbath. And Sunday is not the Sabbath. But watch this. Hold on. So when they start talking about work-life balance, I know where this is leading to. And I see your hand, Brother Keller.
working multiple jobs to live paycheck to paycheck, or you're working 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, something else is sacrificed in that, and it's what ends up happening. You have to sacrifice, ability to go to church. If it's something else to do on a Sunday, maybe you get a Sunday off when you haven't slept all week and you spend the whole day sleeping. I mean, that is a reality a lot of workers face on some of the schedules they work.
So if this is true about Sunday, then what logical conclusion or what logical law should they pass so they won't have to have this discussion no more?
Ley Dominical,
Okay, which is a what?
Sunday law.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, that's what they want to do, a Sunday law.
And you said that, yeah, would you agree with that, church? All right. So what's happening is that what it is kind of like giving the justification. Do you see that? Of why we need to have a bill before Congress to make Sunday the national day of rest for everybody.
And I do believe Congress has an obligation here in spending priorities and regulations. And
Did you hear that, Chad? Priorities and what? Regulate what? Sunday. Are you ready for this? Listen to this. I got 38 more seconds, but listen to what it says in this time.
and that may be an ugly word to some people that represent business. But
Listen, I agree with you. I think we should have an interest in leisure time, right? We should have an interest in...
Who's we? I think we all have interest in leisure, but not from a personal level, but on a Law level. When they say leisure time, what time are they talking about?
Sunday.
Sunday. Listen to this.
Making sure that people are able to find value outside of work. A lot of people find value in
To find value outside of work. So if you're not working, you're resting. Am I right? Am I right? Am I right? So for those, if you just heard the whole argument that people don't have time to go to church, so let's make a law whereby they can go to church. You see the line of reasoning.
work, and I'm glad that they do, but a lot of people find more value by the institutions and the social clubs and the churches that they affiliate and spend time with outside of work, but that is just less accessible for people today, and that should be a public policy interest of the United States Congress, and I appreciate this, and that should be a public policy interest of the United States Congress, and I appreciate it accessible for people today, and that should be a public policy interest of the United States Congress, and I appreciate it accessible for people today, and that should be a public policy interest of the United States Congress, and I appreciate
that it should be a, oh, you know what, let me let you read it, because it was transcribed. It should be a public policy interest of the United States Congress. Hold on. Congress, what is the job of Congress? To pass what? Laws. A public policy, what does public policy imply? Law enforcement, am I right? So the given decrees, that should be a public policy interest of the United States. See, you got to read in between the lines, am I right? So you can take it off the screen. I'm going to just leave this up here. Take it off the screen, Brother Richard, for a second. Let me ask you a question. Brother, can you get a microphone, please? Thank you very much. You can get that blue mic right here. Brother Keller had something he wanted to say. I want to hear what you have to say on this, because this is very interesting, amen? This is very interesting. So, but let me ask the panel. Was I making this up? Was this a stretch? What do you want to say?
That is not a stretch. That is exactly, precisely what the prophet said it would happen.
Right.